This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. I wanted to start this video off by paying some respects to, first of all, Kemper, who, it has to be said, were real innovators in this space for a long time and still kind of are. Kemper, about a decade ago now, brought out a device which, instead of like traditional modelers where you kind of build based on models of bits of gear, the idea was that you could just capture whatever you like, a full signal chain if you like, drive, amp, cab, and then you could just start the profiling process and have a pretty accurate version of that rig available to play around stages across the world, and still people to this day do that. I think the neural DSP quad cortex, which was announced I think in 2019, has some very similar capabilities but is more AI based. And I think at the time of launch, there were a few people that were kind of, very close to Neural DSP in terms of being paid, who did some videos comparing them and found it to be more accurate. In my own tests, I didn't necessarily find that there was much in it, but I think for heavier tones, the quad cortex captures have been sort of agreed to be more accurate. I think that's the case. Now, TONEX has been sort of chugging along for a little while now, a few months maybe, and what was exciting about it at first was that this is the first time that you could create your own AI tone models from a PC without any additional hardware. And so this has been the cheapest way that you could get into the market of this kind of capturing, profiling space without having to spend upwards of £1,000. I think the software, I don't even know how much it is, to be honest. But anyway, IK Multimedia asked me if I would do some demos, and at first I kind of was on the fence with it. I asked some of my subscribers, and it had been coming up in the comments, and then I asked again, and they said, yeah, we'd like to see some TONEX stuff. So I've done some. Now, at the time, they told me as well that, as well as this kind of pretty cool software, which is a first, I think, in terms of capturing full kind of rig tones and creating an AI tone model, they told me there will also be coming a pedal format. Why this is really exciting, I think, is because what this means is that you could see the introduction there. I was using the Joe Bonamassa Dumble captures that they'd done, as well as at the end I was using one of my own. I can put these then onto this pedal and I could gig with those tones, which doesn't necessarily sound super groundbreaking, but it is, because, you know, for about as long as that decade that the Kemper has been around, I know that for sure people have been asking, could we have a VST version of this to use in the DAW? I'd like to be able to run my Kemper profiles in my studio without having to go into the Kemper. And again, the same sort of thing with the Quad Cortex. Could we get plug-in versions of this? And, you know, there's been their own saga with that. Now we actually have that capability. So if you're one of these people that is liked capturing, profiling, creating tone models, that sort of stuff, you can have the DAW version of it, so it's in plugin format, and you can also then take it out, gig it with the TONEX pedal. I think this can contain 150 presets. It's quite reasonably priced as well, so $400 I believe is the price. I'm not exactly sure on the GBP price right now, but this is another thing that I think people have wanted from Kemper for a long time. You know, loads of users that I've seen, and probably the majority of the Kemper user base, don't necessarily create their own profiles, and as such they don't really have all of the need for sort of half of what the Kemper can do. You know, that little chicken knob can turn to profiler mode. A lot of people never use that and maybe never will, and a lot of people rely on, you know, people like Tone Junkie or Michael Britt or whoever to create these profiles in their own kind of studio environment, you know, people that have had the experience of doing this for a long time. So for that reason, for a lot of people who's having to spend sort of £1,400 to £1,600 on a Kemper, when they really only need like a Kemper Player, which is a thing that I've seen people talk about, like a little Kemper in Stompbox form. This kind of exists now with the TONEX, which is really cool. I think it's got MIDI capability, it's got a headphone out, it's got a left and right output, and it's got an external control, as well as being a USB audio interface, which my old Kemper wasn't. Even though it seems to me like this should have been possible years ago, IK Multimedia with the Amplitude TONEX, I think, are the first people to do it. I wanted to show you this, and I'll show you some stuff in front. Thank you to IK Multimedia for getting me involved with this. I do appreciate it, and the most exciting thing about it for me mostly has been that Dumble thing. I think you also get Amplitude 5 and the TONEX app when you buy this, which is of course quite a good little deal, and Amplitude can actually run your profiles in it as well, not profiles, tone models. So that's a really key benefit as well. Thinking, right, well, normally I would put a tube screamer up front, or you put a reverb behind or whatever. You can do that, and delays and stuff. Amplitude, which you get free with this, you could now run like a full kind of suite of stuff using captures that you've created. You don't necessarily need any hardware for capturing specifically. They do make their TONEX capture, which is like a reamp box, but I did my captures initially with a radial X-amp reamp box that any reamp box will do. The actual capturing process does take longer than on a Quad Cortex or on a Kemper. The AI thing, it depends on how fast your machine is going to run. Now we can have a tone model created that we can run on our DAW or in hardware format. So well done, IK Multimedia. So I've now got TONEX here, and I think I'm connected. I need to do a firmware update apparently. So just do that. Firmware update done. Close. TONEX is not connected, syncing, but it's syncing up. And here then we can now see what we've got here. So what I'm initially going to do, I think, is set it up so at the moment you can see you've got 800 Dumble 1 Diamond, so it's kind of all over the place in a bit of a way. I can at least get my ones on, can't I? So John, Cordy, hopefully this will be in here. Yeah, I got my Lone Star, so let's just drag and drop on top of the Rocker Verb. Overwrite. John Cordy's lead. Ooh, John Cordy's lead here, overwrite, and then John Cordy's Mark III, drop here, overwrite. And let's then stick on a couple of the really cool thing for me about this TONEX thing is that there's already some really fantastic things in here. So like these Joe Bonamassa things, if I put these in, these are some of the coolest double tones that I've heard, and so these are the things that I'm kind of excited to try out. I think you get TONEX Max as well, so you get access to all of these things once you've bought the TONEX, which is kind of cool that you don't really have to spend extra money on stuff. That was one of the things that I don't really love about, for instance, the Kemper, that you spend all of that money on a piece of gear and then you kind of have to, or you're expected to, buy a load more. But that's basically the app. Okay, so this is the TONEX pedal. If I go into setup, this is what I'm going to do first. Go into setups here, hold setup, and then settings, naming, cab, user mode. There's two user modes. You can have it in advanced or easy. I'm going to put it into easy, I think. And then there's also things like the main volume, which I'm going to turn down here. I'm going to turn it down by minus. This is just to get it to play nicely with my interface without having to change any settings. Okay, right, we'll go back over here. So this is one of the Joe Bonamassa amp presets that I loaded on. But you notice with all of these things, the cool thing, because of the way that they've set this, it doesn't completely alter the parameters or the kind of. Okay, and then you've got these other presets. But yeah, you see making these changes doesn't totally alter the character of the capture, which is nice. Reverb type here, plate, spring, got some options here. I need to actually turn it on first. Alt, so reverb on. Let's take the gain all the way down as well. So this is kind of my first proper time using this, so I still need to get used to it a bit. Right, back to parameter, reverb type, and other types. A darker spring, lighter spring. Room, plate, nice. And then alt function, let's just turn the compressor up a bit. if I press hold to save here, what happens? You can save that. That's all good. Then what? Save. And then we can change the position of where we're saving it. Yeah. See where that's going. Beautiful. So yeah, you can get a lot done on just the unit itself like this, and you can get a lot of mileage out of the profiles that are included as well. I mean, I've only just touched on a couple of them. I'm really enjoying those tones. So So there you have it, that's the introduction to the TONEX pedal. I'm quite impressed by it, I've got to be honest. And as I said before, I think it's the sort of thing that feels like it should have happened already, but this to me seems to be the first. It doesn't have an effects loop. The idea with this is that you place it in your chain of other pedals. It's powered by 9 volts, which is really handy. Doesn't have any sort of bulky power adapter or anything like that. So you would put your drives before this and your time-based effects like delays and reverbs maybe after this. Yeah, a really neat little package, and I really like the idea of going between your DAW and this with the same tones. I think that's a really neat idea. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Please feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in another video soon.